All right, so we're looking at question 2 from the 2022 AP Calculus AB free response section where the calculator is required. And we're going to handle this question 2 here in 4 separate videos just because A, B, C, and D are really 4 separate ideas. They happen to use all the same equations from the problem, but they don't interconnect from each other. So it's not like we're bringing answers from part A down to part D. So rather than do it all in one big long video, I'm just going to break it up into 4 videos for you. So if you're interested in B, C, or D, look for those videos. But this video is all about part A here. So we're given this graph up above, and you know me, I always want to know what the graph is of. And so what we have here is this is the graph of f and g. So f of x is the natural log of x plus 3, and g of x is the graph of x to the 4th plus 2x cubed. You know, if you know your graphs well enough, it's easy enough to say which one is which, but we've got a graphing calculator, so we'll end up picking that up here in a second either way. Then we're being told that we've got one intersect happening on the left side at x equals -2. So they're telling us that intersects right there. And then they're calling the other intersect over here. They're saying that that's happening at some point B. Then let's look at what part A wants. Part A wants us to now find the area of the region enclosed by the graphs of f and g. So we're looking to find the area between two curves. The area between two curves is an integral setup that you just have to know. So the setup on this looks like the integral from A to B, and I just say whichever equation is on top minus in parentheses whichever equation is on bottom. And so in this situation, top and bottom, I mean above and below. So this would be the top equation here, and this would be the bottom equation there. And then usually what goes on is your bounds are going to be your intersects. And so we know almost all of this information given to us for free. We know our lower bound on here would be -2. That's where this intersect is happening on this side. We could, probably take a good guess at which one's the top one and which one's the bottom one. But the hard part is we're missing this top bound here. We're missing what B is. We don't know what that upper bound is. So we'll go ahead and use our calculator to kind of figure out which one for sure is on top and which one's for sure on bottom if you're not super familiar with how these graphs should look. And we'll also find what that upper bound is going to be. So step 1 of this process is we're going to find out where that intersect is happening. So, and we'll also find which one's on top and bottom. So we're going to do this by graphing. So in y1, I'm going to put that first equation, the natural log of x plus 3. In y2, I'm going to put that second equation, which is x to the 4th plus 2x to the 3rd. And what we're trying to do is we're just trying to set this integral up. So the first thing I would do is just put those in, and I'm just going to graph them. And then from there, I'll be able to tell which one's on top and which one's on bottom. So open up my calculator, go to the y equals. I've got the natural log of x plus 3 into y1. I've got x to the 4th and then plus 2x to the 3rd in y2. So natural log will be the blue graph. The x to the 4th will be the red graph. If you can get yourself a color calculator to work with on the AP Calc test, you will be thankful. I guarantee you have some friend who is not in AP Calculus and not taking this test who has a nicer calculator than they need. So borrow that from them for the test. We graph it, and now I can see very clearly the blue graph is the top graph. That was our natural log graph. And the bottom graph is that red graph, which is the x to the 4th. So I start kind of setting up my integral over here. So I'm going to start putting my pieces into the right places. So the top integral was that first graph. That's the natural log of x plus 3. And then when you set this up, it's minus, in parentheses, that full second graph. If you don't put those parentheses, this thing will be off by a sign, and you won't get the right answer. Bounds, we know the lower bound already. We talked about that. That one was kind of given to us. The lower bound here is -2. But we need to go find our upper bound. We need to find out what that B value is. And so here we're going to just keep working with that same graph. This is why I like graphing these things as opposed to using the other integral functions on the calculator, because you can see everything and do a lot more in this one space. So to find that, we're going to calc the intersect. We're going to hit second, calc, and then we're going to choose the number 5 option in that menu, which will be intersect. And then from there, the calculator will ask us a few questions. We'll answer them, and it will give us what that other x value is. So I hit the second button in the top left. I choose the Calc menu, the button above Trace at the very top, and then inside that menu I'm going to choose that number 5 option, which is Intersect. I hit Enter on that. Then you see at the bottom of the screen there, it's going to ask you a series of 3 questions. The first 2 questions you could really care less about. It's going to say, is that the first curve? Yep, that's the first curve. Go ahead and hit Enter. It's going to switch automatically to the second curve for us and say, is that the second curve? Yep, that's the second curve. Go ahead and hit Enter. And then the guess is going to be back here. You want to move your cursor so you're close to the intersect you want to find. We know the one on the left, so I'm moving my cursor to the right over here to find that intersect. I hit Enter a third and final time, and I will know that I did everything right because at the very bottom of the screen it will say the word intersection, and whatever that X value is, that's going to be the X value that we want to use. And generally when you're doing this type of work on the AP Calc test, you want to use it out to 6 decimal points. So don't round early on a problem like this. So I would go 0.781975. So my upper bound now is 0.781, what was that, 975. And now my integral is set up. And when you're going and talking about how this is scored right now, this is going to be 2 points just from getting that integral set up properly. 1 for having the integral in the right place, and then 2 for having the second point comes from having those bounds in the right place. And then we'll earn our third point on part A here by getting the right answer for this integral, which beautifully enough should be free points because we're just going to do this in the calculator. So to find out what this integral value is, I'm now going to go back in and I'm going to go into my y1. And I'm going to do this equation into y1. Luckily in y1 you should already have the natural log of x plus 3, so you'll just have to clear y2, put a minus, and then parentheses x plus 4, x to the 4th plus 2x to the 3rd. And then from there we would go ahead and graph that. And then step 2 of the process is we're going to go back into that calc menu. We're going to go second, Calc, and now we're going to choose that number 7 option in the menu, which is integral of f of x dx. Again, the calculator is going to ask us a couple of questions. We'll answer them, and then we'll get our points. So from there, we open up the calculator, go back into the y equals. Like I said, this is again why I like graphing is, everything's still kind of there. So I've already got that piece typed in. Now I do minus parentheses, the equation that was on bottom, so x to the 4th plus 2x to the 3rd. And now we're going to graph that. And now I go through and do a calc process again. I'm going to hit second, calc, and I'm going to choose that number 7 option in the menu, which is integral of f of x dx. Now at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see it's going to ask us for a lower limit. So our lower limit is the -2. So I type in -2, I hit enter. It then asks for an upper limit. The upper limit in this situation would be the 0.781975 that we just found. So again, we just type that in. We hit enter. It shades it in, and at the bottom of the screen, it says the integral of f of x dx equals, and we're looking at 3.603. On the test, they normally want you to round to 3 decimal places on a final answer. So 3.604 would be our final answer here. So this is going to be 3.604, and that's your last point on this. So that total question was worth 3 points. 2 points for setting up the integral properly, and then 1 point for getting the right answer. And then we will follow up on the rest of this question, B, C, and D, in 3 other videos following.